are the New York Knicks. I'm back. Back in the New York. Well, it's the Knicks. New York. We are the New York Knicks. New York. For this new season we're about to enter, the Knicks taking no shorts just like winter. New York, New York.
New York be about the Knicks, huh?
But the best thing about New York City is
K-N-I-C-K-S.
Everybody say go New York, go New York, go!
Go New York, go New York, go!
Hey everybody, it's the New York Knicks podcast. It's episode 500 and something. I lost track. Part of the Lineups Podcast Network at lineups.com, the Big Heads Media Network at bigheadsmedia.com, and Dash Radio. Special guest today, we got Mike from Mike Delivers and the Bad Weather Fans podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you for having me on the podcast and hearing that go New York, go New York, go. A little makes me a little bit sick, but at the same time, I have so much respect for the New York Knicks and the organization. I mean that. It was kind of cool hearing that because it does bring me back to my childhood, hearing that little jingle in your guys' cool open.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. For those who don't know the Bad Weather podcast, Mike and his co-host Alex do a Knicks and Brooklyn Nets podcast. And Mike is the Brooklyn Nets portion of the show. And he's here to we're working on a trade. It's going to be Harden, Durant, and Kyrie for Randall. I think it's going to be Elfrid Payton. We're getting rid of Payton, so everyone's cool with that. And Derrick Rose. We're pleading the big three for the big three. Are you in?
Well, the problem is I think to sweeten the deal, the Knicks are going to want draft picks. And I've looked through the Nets draft picks in the next couple of years. They are out of first round draft picks. So I don't know if that deal is going to even be possible on that front of things. But I mean, I love what I've seen from Randall, 26 years old. He's finally coming into his prime. He's got a coach that knows what to do with him. So maybe the Nets should think about that. And maybe I could see Steve Nash getting the most out of those three guys for sure.
What about Durant, Harden, and Kyrie for Frank? Because Frank is just the greatest player of all time.
Let me say this. As a Nets fan, every time I see Frank Ntilikina play against the Nets, from my point of view, he's always played well. He's always done a decent job. Now, I know you've watched way more Knick games than I have, and you've probably seen Frank not shoot the ball well. And this year we haven't seen him shoot because he's not on the court. But I will say, every time he plays the Nets, I'm like, Frank Ntilikina, 18-footer, top of the key, bang. Drives me nuts. I swear he kills the Nets.
That would be the only team he kills. Well, he kills us as the fans. But I'm going to talk to Elfrid Payton. If you just look at his stats for the last two games and disregard the rest of his career, he looks pretty good. He's pretty efficient. He believes the world's round. He shows up to games most of the time.
See, those are little details that don't really matter once you get onto the basketball court. The court's flat or the world's flat, and Kyrie Irving's living in it. I'll say this: when Kyrie's been on the court, he's actually played really well. Last game, when they decided they wanted to try, his defensive effort was incredible versus Indiana. Yes, he did take a week off, or maybe it was 2 weeks, and he disappeared, and that was a little brutal. But when he's been on the court, I will say Kyrie has actually defended at a pretty high rate, which is crazy to say out loud. And then his offensive game, we kind of all know about.
Under 17, how many games does your big three play on the same day?
Wait, say that question for me again one more time.
Durant, Kyrie, Harden, all on the court at the same time, under 17 games the rest of the season.
Okay, so the Nets are 15-12, which means they've played 27. There's 72 games. So 30, 40,
45
so they've got
games.
45. Thank you for doing the math faster than I can. So 45 games. You said 17.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with over. I'm going to go with over. I'm going to be, I'm going to be optimistic about this. I'm going to go with over. Maybe not by much. It might be like 20, which probably would be the answer. But I'll go with over by slightly to see if this big three can get their, what together.
I mean, we can't do too many digs considering you guys have a lot of talent. We get it in where we can.
That's fine.
Fine. You guys have a hell of a team, and we'll talk a lot of Nets also. We're going to start with the Knicks, but just I'm just curious. But actually, just to start with the Nets quickly, are you, as a Nets fan, and I'm sure you're a long-suffering Nets fan, are you in heaven with this? Like, how do you feel the fact that you have this big three now?
Well, I'm excited excited for this team because there's NBA Finals expectations, but it's a weird team on my end on the front of like. I was opposed to the James Harden trade. I was really upset when it happened, partially because I fell in love with Karis LeVert. And then I also saw what Jared Allen was doing. And clearly the Nets you see now without Jared Allen, they are a disaster inside. DeAndre Jordan literally was like, I will play tonight, and did fine. And that made a huge difference. But I'm excited. I haven't had many opportunities in my Nets fandom where I went into a season, and now really like the second season it started with the James Harden trade, where I'm thinking to myself, I could watch a championship, and that's something I've never been able to say as a Nets fan. We had the 2 back-to-back NBA Finals, 2001, 2002, 2002, 2003. The first year came out of nowhere with the J. Kidd trade. The next year, there was expectations to make the finals. But this is the first time I can really say in my life, like, it's championship or bust for the Brooklyn Nets. So at 15-12 with putrid losses all over the place, a game against Washington that was horrendous, a game against Detroit early in the week that was just mind-blowingly bad on defensively. The Detroit Pistons are the worst offensive team in the league. They're putting up, they're the Harlem Globetrotters out there versus the Nets. So it's extremely frustrating to see that. But then you see moments where they can just turn it on and they flip the switch. And I know this is kind of a weird herky-jerky year for everybody. So it's hard to give are they that bad on defense? What if they actually tried? What am I watching here? So I'm 15, the Nets are 15-12. I'm disappointed with how things have gone so far, but at the same time, really optimistic that I'll be watching, my first championship. And then the consequence of that will be every single Knicks fan going, you only had 720 people at your parade. Your fans suck. Nobody likes your team. Like I'm waiting for the moment where the Knicks fans can make that dig and then talk about, well, if the Knicks won, you know how many people would be there? The Canyon of Heroes. That's all I want to hear. Nets titles, walk down Flatbush, 800 of us waving our pom-poms, and then I'll be in heaven.
So I want to compliment the Nets on something. So you are likely to be in the playoffs. If things have to go really bad for you guys, to be in the playoffs. Jeez. And you're and you have a big matchup in the playoffs. Like as far as teams to worry about, the Bucks may be one of the biggest teams to worry about. They obviously are very good, and they have a guy named Giannis. And you need a guy who could stop Giannis. And so you have signed former Knick and Giannis stopper Noah Vonleh. I'm very impressed that you guys got him. I don't know if you know the history.
I don't. Please tell me.
On the Knicks, when the Knicks would play the Bucks with Giannis, Vonleh would hold Giannis to I guess semi-okay all-star numbers. Like he would score like 30 instead of 38 points against the Knicks, and the Knicks fans would react. They would act like Noah Vonleh had just shut down Giannis. They basically started calling him like the Giannis. Like they basically acted like he was the guy who was like the antidote to to his superhero ways.
Yeah, if Giannis was averaging 26 for the season, he would score like 24 that night, and everyone would be like, there you go. It's over.
They were like, he shot 49% from the field instead of 55%. Oh my God, he's so good. And they'd go through these. It was like, if you go, obviously you go on Twitter, you see all the Knicks Twitter insanity, and people will go on about how, if you look at all the analytics, Frank is the greatest player in the history of the NBA. It was the same thing. They'd be like, if you look at the analytics, just when Vonleh guarded Giannis, he did this. And you'd be like, okay, he sucks. Giannis crushed us tonight. I'm glad he held them to like borderline all-star numbers instead of all-star numbers, but we lost.
Vonleh held Giannis to 2 points in 7 minutes, and if you extrapolate that over the course of 42 minutes, he held him to 12 points. So, greatest defender. Anyway, the Knicks made no
idea.
Yeah.
So there's a history. We have such a sorry history in the last 10 years of guys who the Knicks fan base has pretended are good.
See, I'll just be completely transparent with the audience. Like, I have gotten to a point in my adulthood where I'm a Giants fan. I'm a Mets fan. I don't really watch hockey. No, I don't watch hockey. I don't watch it. But I don't really get that upset with other teams. Like the Eagles, I don't like. Yeah, Dallas, we don't like. Yeah, the Yankees, whatever. Yeah, the Braves, and we don't like the Nats. But I don't really care if they were to win. I mean that. If the Knicks win, it still irritates me. There's like a real dislike for that team that as a Nets fan, it's the one team, even as an adult, I just say, When they lose, I'm in a better mood. Like the Nets lost the other day against Detroit, and then when the Knicks blew it against Miami, it made me feel a little bit better, to be completely honest with all of your listeners.
That's
I mean,
fine. I was pretty
just a
happy
loser
during that
Net fan
Detroit
saying
game.
that.
So
I've never felt the way I have the disdain for the Yankees. I've never felt that disdain for the Nets.
Sure.
I don't root for them, but I love the fact that you have this disdain for the Knicks. I want to play. Let's do the ESPN trade machine here. I want to ask you. I have a player to trade to you, and I want to see what you'd give us for him.
All right, let's hear it.
You have DeAndre Jordan as your center. So, oh my God, right now you need help in the inside. Nerlens Noel, who is, I think, 6th in the league in block shots per game, yet the fact that he's only playing like 20 minutes a game or 17 minutes a game, Nerlens Noel would be an excellent rim protector for you guys. Disagree?
No, he would be. Anybody would be an excellent rim protector at this point. We just talked about Noah Vonleh being brought in. Like they are desperate for help at the 5.
So what would you give us for Nerlens?
See, at this point, nothing. And I'll tell you why.
Okay, why?
Because, in the Nets universe right now, and the optimism that I have is that there's going to be the buyout market where guys like an Andre Drummond become available, and then they join Brooklyn. So I'm not tempted. First of all, I guess at this point it will only be a 2nd-round pick because there's nothing to give up. And Landry Shamet, who's been the trade idea, he's actually playing a little bit better right now. So I'm not giving. I guess I would give up a 2nd-round pick for Nerlens Noel, but I'm optimistic, and I've said that a lot tonight, that the Nets are going to be able to sign a center that's going to put them over the top because they need rebounding. Like DeAndre Jordan in the last game actually decided to play. He had 12 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks, and actually moved laterally when a defender moved into the paint and didn't just like watch him and salute him and say, nice shot. Yeah, that was cool to see. So I am a believer that they will sign somebody, and I'm hopeful that DeAndre Jordan will continue to try.
So there is whatever he's doing is trying. There's no way DeAndre Jordan will look good as your center in the playoffs. Forget the regular season. He's going to look like trash in the playoffs. I want Shamet. That's all. I don't want a 2nd rounder. I don't need your 2nd-round picks. I want Shamet. But that was my trade proposal. But if you guys get Drummond, that would be awesome.
That would be nice.
For Detroit, what's the point of them buying him out, though? I don't understand why teams are like,
he's on.
I guess
he's on
you're
Cleveland
tanking.
now.
I guess
He's
I don't
on,
know.
Isn't
Sorry,
he on
Cleveland. Sorry, Cleveland.
No, it's okay. He was on Detroit for a billion years.
I
think for Cleveland, I think the idea is to give Jared Allen some reps, and he's their center of the future, and they just dealt for him. So I think they know the writing's on the wall with Drummond that they're not going to re-sign him because right now he's in the last year of his deal. So they're going to try to trade him. If they can't, just buy him out and make him happy. And then for them, they give Jared Allen the minutes that he deserves to try to improve and get better with their young center, who I miss very much.
Yeah, Jim
that
said
all
to
makes sense.
save
I just don't
money,
want your Nets to get Andre Drummond.
I don't blame you.
Annoy the crap out of me.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. Like, and I'll throw this at you guys. I'm curious what you think. But like, there's no way in hell when you guys were rooting for the Knicks and they were in New Jersey, you just didn't care about the Nets. Like they were just irrelevant. And I'm sure it was like win or lose. It was like whatever. But there's an irritating factor now with these Nets. They're way more irritating than they used to be when it was guys like Chris Morris, Kenny Anderson, Derek Coleman running up and down the court saying trade me on their sneakers. Like now the Nets have gotten to a point where they're irritating. They're annoying. I mean, James Harden's there, Kyrie, Kevin Durant, like they're becoming more of a hateable team to the Knicks, which I think shows that the Nets have made a dent in the market.
Well, it's not only that you guys got a bunch of very unlikable players.
Yeah.
It's the whole, we came to Brooklyn and we said we're taking over the city and putting up billboards. That's what got under my skin.
Well, I don't blame you, but I agree with you. It's stupid. I mean, I dislike the Knicks and I don't want them to succeed, but I'm rational in understanding that this is not a town that is cared about the Nets compared to the Knicks. It's not even close. It's nine out of every 10 people you meet would be a Knicks fan if I had to take an educated guess. But now I want to say it's like, it's that younger generation of people that are watching that don't remember, John Starks had a nice dunk versus Michael Jordan in a series that the Bulls won. Like, I don't think that the younger fans going to remember that. And that would be the interesting part to me. If it's the 5-year-old to 12-year-old that's seeing Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, that might become Net fans of the future. But as of now, it's not even close when you look at the fan base.
I also think the younger generation is more fans of players than they are of teams. So it's easier for them to be like, oh, I like Durant. I'm just gonna be a fan of wherever
Right.
Durant goes.
Hey, I have so Jay and I have a little bit of debate in the show, and you're, as a lifelong Nets fan, you're a good person to ask about this.
Yeah.
I've been debating with Jay, and no, please don't take offense to this, but I think the dumbest team name in all of sports is the Nets. It's like someone closed their eyes, spun in a circle, and just pointed and goes, "That's our team name," wherever I'm
Right.
pointing. How do you like?
So that's an interesting question. And if you guys were Net fans and I was in like a comfortable place with Nets fans, maybe I'd agree with it. But I don't know if I could just go to a Knicks fan and be like, "You're right. That's really stupid." But it is kind of a bizarre team. And that's why, let me say this, when the Nets this season are wearing those retro jerseys with the baby blue back in the 91-92 season, which they were 26 and 52 or 26 and 52, whatever the math is. I'm having trouble with that. They were really bad. That's why it's weird when I see James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving in these stupid Nets jerseys, because I'm like, those are the Nets I remember. And now I'm seeing these superstars in this dumb team name. You're right. It is kind of a weird name, but it's just been stuck in my head for so long. But I mean, I guess the Mets and Jets, that rhymes with that. So then are those bad team names too?
Yeah, well, they're not things on the court. I mean,
I think the Jets is fine. I don't really like the Mets.
Metropolitan.
Anyway, let's shift over to.
I like one more thing is that I like the fact that the Nets, the one time they were going to change their name, they were like the Swamp Dragons, and everyone's like,
"Yes,
no, Nets sound brilliant. We'll go back to the Nets."
Yeah, Swamp Dragons. I don't know how much real validity there was to that. If you go on Nets Twitter, you can find the fake jerseys that were mocked up, which are pretty horrendous, with like the green and purple look like Barney.
That's all right. We'll always have the Brooklyn Knight.
But
yes.
By the way, your Nets are so like. I'm very much going to take a lot of pleasure, despite the fact that I don't have the animosity to the Nets. This Nets team, I'm hoping loses, and if you guys miss the playoffs, I'll be very happy. But I can't even hope for a first round exit. I know you guys aren't going to make the first round exit. My hope really is the second round exit. That's the most I could hope for, really.
Yeah, that's the word that I get from all the people that hate the Nets is you spent all those trades for a second round exit. Yeah, that's the one I hear a lot. And because I mean the East is. I mean, because they're going to see Philly, Boston, or Milwaukee in the second round. So it would be one of those three teams, which that's one of my fears. It's certainly possible.
I think your key player, by the way, not the big three. I think Harris, Joe Harris. If he can hit it, if he can go off, you guys are. It's hard to beat you guys.
Yeah, Joe's one of my favorite players because I worked for the University of Virginia. I ran their basketball network for a little bit, and he was one of their players there. So I saw Joe from Virginia to what he's become today, which has been remarkable, the way he's just developed into like a legit NBA good role player. He's making $18 million a year. So, yeah, I love Joe, and it's been awesome to see his development with the Brooklyn Nets when they got him, and then to where he is now, where he is a part of the team that they really need to succeed if they want to win a title.
Also, the thing about, and they'll go to the Knicks, now we'll go to the Knicks in a second, but the thing that actually makes me jealous about your organization is Sean Marks actually seems smart. And we don't, Leon Rose, we'll see what happens, but Sean Marks, I'm a fan of Sean Marks.
No, I mean, what he was able to do to take this franchise that had traded the 3 picks to Boston in the Pierce Garnett deal, and then basically retool a team that tried tanking without your draft picks, and to make a rebuild out of that. He did a fantastic job of flipping veteran players for draft picks and then drafting well. LeVert Allen, he drafted, which then he flipped for James Harden. So you can kind of see the evolution while building a culture, which I know that's like a tough word, and sometimes people yell at me when I say it, but building a culture, then flipping picks, and now he's got the core group, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, Sean did a fantastic job to get to this point.
Well, you want to talk about flipping assets. The Knicks traded Porzingis for Dennis Smith, and then traded Dennis Smith to get Derrick Rose, who the Knicks had when they had Porzingis. So there.
And we transitioned to our topic of the show.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the Derrick Rose trade now, which, despite what I just said, if you take out the first part of the whole Porzingis for Smith thing, I do like the Rose for Dennis Smith part.
We got the 2 Dallas picks also. I have to say, originally, I was not a fan of the Phil Jackson for Rose move. This Derrick Rose move, I am a big fan of. So, as a Nets fan, an outsider, Mike? What do you think of the Rose
Well,
move?
I would worry because the Knicks looks like they hit on something in Emmanuel Quickly. We've been playing super well. And think about the Knicks. They dealt Morris for the draft pick. That draft pick was an asset. It became quickly. And, he's obviously made a great mark so far in the early season with the Knicks. This is the one time you're like, oh, man, if the Knicks had fans in the building at Madison Square Garden, that Emmanuel quickly would become a fan favorite with the way he plays, hustles, shoots, the energy that he brings, gets into the paint. So my worry would be with Derrick Rose coming in, if it's going to take away minutes from him, because we've seen Elfrid Payton get minutes. We know Derrick Rose got, I believe, 20 minutes in his first effort with the Knicks in the loss to Miami. I'd worry as a Knicks fan, curious on your perspective of I guess you're excited to have him, but then is quickly going to get the minutes he deserves, that he's shown that he has been incredibly valuable so far in his rookie season with New York.
That was my biggest fear when they did the trade. I thought, oh, now they're just going to play the vets over the young guys. It looks like so far Rose is getting Austin Rivers and Kevin Knox minutes, which I am totally fine with.
I think the Rose, I guess my view of this is Tibbs loves Rose. He thinks he's the guy that plays his system. Yes. And whatever, I think it's also a different Rose. This is not the Rose the Knicks got who thought he was still a starter, thought he was still a superstar.
Sure.
This version of Rose is like, I'm coming off the bench. I'm totally fine with that. Just want to be on a team I like, want to be with a coach I like. And I'm totally all about being like a mentor to the young players. He wanted to be a mentor to Killian Hayes on Detroit. He's already sat down with Obi and sat down with IQ and is like, I'm going to try to really help you guys, mentor you guys. I don't know if he said those exact words. I know he sat down with them, but I think it's going to be a different. I think this is the positive move, especially if you replace this Austin Rivers, not IQ's minutes. I think for developmental purposes, despite I know Knicks fans are going crazy, IQ needs to start. He needs to start as if he doesn't. As if he becomes a starter, the Knicks will just win the title. I think Tibbs, forgetting how bad Elfrid Payton is, Tibbs just views, I'm going to develop him. He's probably better off playing off the bench in this role, forgetting how bad Elfrid Payton is. And I think we also have to say, this is the first coach as a Knicks fan we've had in a long time that knows what the fuck he's doing.
Sure.
Jed, I don't know if we curse on the show anymore, but anyway, so I think we need to just trust our coach basically and go hey, he knows what he's doing. He might have maybe onto something of how to develop this guy. Maybe the idea of keeping him off the bench, having him end games when he's playing well, but not necessarily giving him 30 minutes a night.
Right.
It's going to be good for his development. Maybe having a veteran like Derrick Rose next to him will be helpful. The second unit looked so much better the other night with Rose. There was also, forgetting the benefit to IQ, Obi looked a lot better in the second unit because you had another guy who could pass the ball, open the offense up. I mean, Rose also was just hitting every shot. It was just, I know he will not do that again. Not do that every night, but he was just I'm just on fire basically.
Well, do you know why Obi looked better?
Because it was the ball was moving?
No, because Knox said he's going to mentor Obi. Even though Knox is younger than Obi.
That really was said.
That happened.
So I take it as basically you get basically a veteran point guard who's been through the league, also a guy who's completely all in on Tibbs' system. I'm sure if he didn't want to play for Tibbs, Detroit would not have made this trade. He's all in for his coach. And if you notice, Rose was not known for his defense, and I probably didn't watch the game, but Rose was actually really trying to play defense and really hustling and playing actually solid defense. The Knicks are trying to build a culture. This is year one of the culture under Tibbs. Having guys they brought back Taj, having guys like Rose, I think it's going to be overall helpful for the culture Tibbs is trying to build here.
Yeah, no, and I hate watch the end of that game. So no, I did catch some of it, but I think that's an interesting point that you bring up with the Derrick Rose function going in there as a mentor, and then also coming back to the spot about Thibodeau, who's clearly you can see knows what he's doing, and it just exposes even more how bad of a coach David Fizdale was with a team that had not a lot of talent, but they were better than whatever they started, 3 and whatever that record was, clearly showing that. So I think it's kind of funny too when the Knicks fan is like, I love Coach Thibodeau. He's doing a great job, but I don't think he's handling the guard situation right. Instead of maybe, like you said, giving him the benefit of the doubt that he knows what he's doing and he doesn't want to give quickly so many minutes early to kind of take him out of his rhythm, give him too much, give him too much control early. Let him ease into it and do things the right way. So I think I agree with you on the idea of if the minutes aren't disappearing and Derrick Rose can be a mentor to him. And then also, who knows what the Knicks are done? Like if they could flip Elfrid Payton to get a pick back, then you just dealt, Payton for Rose essentially one-on-one, and you feel good about that as your point guard for the rest of the season, and as somebody that, as you said, is in Thibodeau's system, and then could go ahead and help Emmanuel quickly become the player you hope that he can become.
Right. I mean, the Knicks, as much as like, it's weird because people will be like, the Knicks, the development is so important. You're like, well, Tibbs thinks him coming off the bench is better for development. But if he starts, we'd win more games. Yeah, but Tibbs is trying to, you said development's important, but I think winning's important. Well, Elfrid was playing well that game, so no. Tibbs, you can't play him if he's playing well. Like, people are just all over themselves just to hate on. First of all, I don't know if the Nets fan base has this, but the Knicks fan base is full of people who hate, like, they pick one or two players on the team and just hate them. They'll spend every day on Twitter going off about how horrendous. Like, Elfrid will have like an okay, fine game, and they'll put out like 5 tweets about how horrible Elfrid is. You're like, who cares? Like, why are you so focused on this guy? Aren't we rooting for the whole team?
I would also say too, it's not about who starts the game. I mean, I think that might be one of the most overrated statistics talked about. Yeah, I would say it has some value in some areas, but you could start the game, play 7 minutes, and then never see the court again. If it's about having him when it matters, having him down the stretch, having him rested and ready to go in the fourth quarter. Like, to me, if I was a Knicks fan and I was watching Emmanuel quickly, I'd be more concerned with like how he looks in the fourth quarter, that he's getting big minutes that can help his development, as opposed to starting the game in the backcourt when nobody's watching anyway, and it's 11-9. Like, it's about the serious minutes at the end. There's just some magical ego boost to everybody when they can be like, he's the starter. It's like, well, Manu Ginobili wasn't the starter, and I'm not saying Emmanuel quickly is that, but Manu Ginobili wasn't the starter for the Spurs, but he was there when it mattered. He was there on the court in the big spots, and that's all that really counts when it's all said and done, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I remember the year that J.R. Smith, when he won 6th Man of the Year for the Knicks, and everyone's like, he's coming off the bench, oh, maybe he should start. I think he's a bench player, and I'm like, he's playing like 34 minutes a night. He's right. De facto starter. It doesn't matter if he doesn't come in the first 5 minutes of the game. Like,
yeah, he was like third in minutes on the whole team, and
right.
Conversely, there was one guy. Was it Woodson? He would start a guy for 4 minutes, and then
Kurt Thomas would play 4 minutes, but he started.
But then wouldn't play the rest of the game.
Right.
Just like you said, it was.
I'm trying to. There was the Nets did that with somebody 2 years ago, and I'm blanking on it. It may have been Jason Collins. I can't remember. But what was the rationale from the coaches why they would play Kurt for 4 minutes and then it would be like, enjoy the rest of your night, enjoy the Gatorade? What was the deal?
I don't know.
I don't remember that. The rationale. I remember it being.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It didn't happen that many times, but it happened enough times where you're like, wait, what? He's not coming back? Okay.
Right.
But I just think that people have to separate Elfrid sucking and whether Emmanuel quickly should start are separate discussions. One's about the player's development, and one's like, this is the guy, the GM, the GM, when they constructed the team, this is the guy they dealt me as the guy I have to start because I don't have anyone else to start because I want IQ coming off the bench.
Can I ask you guys questions as Knicks fans?
Oh, please.
I'm curious because this is something that I think might become an actual discussion point for the Knicks in the next month or two. Clearly, Julius Randle's having his best season as a pro. He's been fantastic. He looks great in the system. Much different than we saw from him last year. He's a fringe all-star player. He could be an all-star this year. He's playing great. He's 26 years old, so he's still super young. Not like crazy NBA young, but still young enough where he could be a part of the Knicks' plans in the future. Do you guys feel that they should keep him and have him be part of the rebuilding process with Barrett quickly, et cetera, or high value, see if they can deal him and try to get more assets and keep building the roster?
I think he's shown enough that, first of all, he's on a team option for next year on a pretty reasonable contract. So it seems like you should ride that contract out at the very least. But I don't know. It just seems like, why are you trading the team's best player who's showing a huge step forward as far as his overall game this season? Why are you going to trade him for assets to hope that someone you draft is going to be as good as this player? He's not quite an all-star yet. I mean, the low post actually, they just did their pocket. They went through the all-stars in the East, And there's just too many guys ahead of Randall for him to actually make it. But he's still borderline. He's playing really well. He's getting better. Like, he showed major steps forward from just last year to this year under Tibbs. It seems to me like you can build, I don't know where the team is going, but it's definitely going to be you should stick to the guys who are good and keep building around them. He's 26. He's probably got at least 5 or 6 really good years under him. You can't plan much more than 5 or 6 years in the future.
I'm in the same boat. I want to keep him in, and let's not forget, he's not missing any games either. He's playing a lot of minutes. He never misses a game. You can't ask for more, really.
I mean, the Knicks team, and he's also playing defense. He's playing very solid defense.
Yeah.
He's doing all you could ask of him. He's getting better. And if you add maybe like actual guards who can shoot around him, it would make a huge difference. He's become a very willing passer. He hits lots of guys for open threes, and he's averaging 6 assists a game. If he was on a halfway decent, if he was on Miami, he'd be averaging 10 assists a game right now.
Yeah.
He's been that good of a passer, but the Knicks just can't hit shots.
Right.
What do you? So you're an outsider. Obviously, you're following the Knicks, and obviously watch the number of the games. What do you think of Randall? Do you think the Knicks should? What do you think the Knicks should do?
See, I'm not as invested in the team as you guys are. Like, you actually like the Knicks, and you want, and I mean that. From an outsider's perspective. Like, I would say if you have him at high value, deal him. But then I would say it depends on the trade. Like, I don't think you want to just make a trade to make the trade. But if you feel confident that he's going to be the guy that's going to be part of this team in 3 or 4 years, when the Knicks are at that point, when RJ Barrett's the all-star, when Emmanuel Quickley's the all-star, when Obi Toppin's dunking through the gym, he's not quite an all-star, but he's averaging 12 and 10, and he's doing great things, then you want to make sure he's around at that point. But I would fear that it's going to take so long to get there. You might as well deal him at the highest point that you can and try to get a return if that's available. Like, I'll say this, as a Nets fan, he'd be a perfect fit for them because they have nobody that can rebound the basketball. Go in there, do the dirty work, hit some shots, get some rebounds. He'd be great. Not that the Knicks and Nets are going to be making trades or the Nets have anything to give up at that point, but I would keep an eye out for the deal. Although I get the sense that, because now I'm seeing like these Bradley Beal rumors, and if the Knicks would be involved with him or Victor Oladipo, it doesn't feel like the Knicks would be trading partners and getting rid of a guy like Randall. They want to be taking in more star power. But if the deal was right, I'd do it. I would.
I don't like the idea of the Knicks just trying to like go all in for the 8th seed, but I think they should. Randall's the guy to build around. I also just don't think as much as I value Randall, I think he's like becoming an all-star, I don't think the return would be that great.
See, that's the part. I don't know either what it would be. Like, what was Morris? You got whatever that pick was, 25, 26. So I guess it would be a late first round kind of pick that you're getting. And then there's no guarantees with that. So I see your point there, but I would look at the idea of if it's going to be in 3 or 4 years to get a value when the Knicks are good and maybe he's older and gone. That's how I would kind of look at it.
If Obi had come in and looked awesome, I would say, yeah, we got the guy who's going to replace him already. And I feel like, I do think if you're getting picked 20 through 30, then it's just a really stupid trade. He's too good to make that trade. If it was a top 10, if it was picked if it was going to be a late, like pick 8 or 9 or 10 in the draft, I don't know if I'd even do it. I'd want a top 5 pick for Randall for how well he's playing.
Jim said Randall for Harris. And as much as we love Jim, I really don't want to hear that kind of blasphemy anymore.
Wait, what happened?
Randall for Harris.
Who said? Oh, from the room.
I don't care if it's Joe Harris or Tobias Harris. I don't want to hear either one of those.
I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
Oh man, I don't even think I could make that trade because I'm so attached to Joe. It'd be so difficult, even though it's a no-brainer for the Nets. You'd have to deal with Joe Harris.
I'll give you a trade. Okay, Randall for Joe Harris. And we get your first rounders from 2030 to 2050, all the ones you can give up.
Well, at that point, the Nets will be 18 years straight without a 10-win season. So I'm sure you'll have a decent pick at the year 2030 or whatever the hell it'll end up being. Sure, you can have that.
So, just to make you feel better, if the trade actually happens, according to world scientists, the world will actually be over because of the environmental collapse in 2031.
That's fair. So at that point, just keep trading the picks. Maybe the Nets know something that we don't. That's why, take the 2026 pick. The world won't be here. Who cares? Why take all the assets at this point? There's going to be no earth, and they've consulted with Kyrie about it.
Do you ever? I wonder if GMs ever try to do that. Like the Spurs, who like seem like the smartest organization in all of basketball. You ever see like on the phone? They're like, "How about Can you just throw in a 2048 pick?" Oh, I'm sorry, what? No, 2048. We just want the pick from 2048. That's 2048 will never even happen. Just throw the pick in.
Right, just go down the road that line. Why not? Hey, let's give it a shot.
So
Suddenly you find out like 2 decades from now, the Spurs have all the picks in that decade.
Bushy wants
They draft
to
well.
hear our take on Beal not playing tomorrow. It's the first time Beal's not playing. And
I don't think the Knicks could give up enough to get Beal. That's
I
going to make sense
think
without
it's
gutting the team.
confirmed that the Knicks are getting
Beal
him.
is awesome, but I don't see the Knicks actually even pulling off the Beal trade.
well, they have Frank, though.
Oh, okay. Sorry. What do the Wizards have first rounders to throw in there for Beal plus first rounders for Frank? Do you think if the Knicks traded Beal for Frank, there'd be Frank fans who are like, we're getting ripped off?
Yeah, but Beal doesn't have nearly the defense Frank does.
That's a fair point. That's a good point. He can only score 40 to 60 when he wants to.
So
I
think
mean,
the
Frank
Knicks-
can score 4 to 6 whenever he wants.
So I think the Knicks' biggest issues here. So Randall, you're not going to get enough value to make it worth it. You at some point, if you have a player who's borderline all-star and he's 26, why are you trading him just to trade him? I understand the team is pretty far away, but what the team needs more than anything is shooting from the guard position in particular, and point guard play. You know what? You're going to have 2 decent draft picks in the first round this year.
Crazy.
Draft guys. I mean, hopefully Dallas misses the playoffs. That'd be amazing. And beyond that, try to sign you don't have to have an all-star home run. Try to sign I'm not sure who's going to be who's the free agency is going to be. Just try to sign 1 or 2 guys who can shoot. Get a bunch of guys that can shoot the ball. This team will look a lot better. I know it's easier than said than done, but
do you guys watch Dallas to lose now?
Oh, yeah.
oh my God, yeah. One more.
That was I mean, that is it. Oof. That's some scary crap.
I also like Luka and KP sniping at each other through the media.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
I mean,
Gotta feel good.
Yeah.
It's doubly satisfying because obviously we have the pick. So I love that Dallas is losing and helping us with the pick, but also I kind of want to see KP's career go to basically be a dumpster fire from here because I'm just bitter about his exit from the Knicks. So,
well, and his attitude too, like going to Dallas and rubbing it in and showing Instagram photos of his muscles. Look how tough I am here out in Dallas. I mean, I know at the time it was a tough trade to take, but it's funny. You just don't know when you make these deals where teams are going to be. Look at the Nets and that trade they made, and they gave up all those draft picks. It became Jaylen Brown and a guy named Jason Tatum was good. You just don't know what's going to happen. So, I mean, if somehow, the Knicks could never win the lottery with their own pick, but this year they'll do it and it'll be with the Maverick pick. I mean, even as a Knick hater like myself who wants to see them always struggle, like even me, I'm like, the irony here just to see the Dallas fan upset would be slightly remarkable. It really would be.
Yeah, that would be kind of amazing. If you look at I haven't watched enough of Dallas playing, but just even looking at the numbers, if you look at that trade, the best player in that trade might have been Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yeah, he's played well.
He's played well. If the Knicks had Tim Hardaway Jr., they'd be a much better team right now. I mean, his defense isn't solid, but his shooting, especially from the outside, it's exactly what the Knicks need right now.
He was another one of those guys I swear would never miss versus the Knicks, like him or versus the Nets. It was Hardaway, Trier would never miss, and then like I said, Frank. These guys were unstoppable players.
You keep saying Frank. I cannot imagine there really was a game where Frank was that good against the Nets. But
I'll tell you, I saw Ntilikina play every time against the Nets. I went to a game at the Garden. Actually, this is a couple of years back when the Nets made the playoffs as the 6th seed, and they played at the Garden early in the season. KP was still on the roster, and Frank was hitting mid-range jump shot, and I still have it engraved in my head every time the ball went in the loop, and the sound effects, in the net, like poof.
So here's the question. So obviously you saw some Frank and you've seen Knox a little bit. Do you think the Knicks, I guess, is one of the critiques that Tibbs gets is he's now been burying Knox and Frank. Tibbs claims it's based on how you practice and obviously how you perform on the court. but he's seen enough of them that he doesn't value them to put them on the court. Is Tibbs doing the Knicks' future a disservice by not playing Knox and Frank?
Well, I think if he thinks he sees the writing on the wall that these guys aren't good, I think no. I mean, I think he knows they're not part of the future. Now, if you want to say like that he's going to hurt their trade value for something else, maybe yes. But I can tell you from watching Knox, and I remember the Nets game in particular, the guy is so talented, so smooth, big body, can shoot, but it's like he's just in quicksand or something, and it's just not giving that like energy. And because he makes it look effortless, in my opinion, at times with how talented he could be, but it's just not all coming together. So I think Tibbs sees the writing on the wall that these guys aren't going to be here. Now, granted, they're barely of age to drink alcohol, but if he doesn't think they're part of this future, and you have to remember, like, this isn't the guys that they brought in together. Like, this isn't Quickly, and well, I guess Toppin's not getting as many minutes, but this is the old regime with these guys. He doesn't care, and I think that's the way he views it, that these guys are lost causes on this roster, and they're going to be dealt anyway in the Bradley Beal trade.
Yeah, that definitely. It's Knox and Ntilikina straight up. Washington, I mean, like, you might as well do it. That would be a great way to go all in with the tank with Westbrook.
Let's do some emails.
Yeah. I was going to say basically that Knox, he's been in the league for 3 years and he still cannot finish at the rim to save his life. I question whether he's ever going to be much more than he looks a little better this season, but and it's just not there. I think he's many years away from really developing as an NBA player. And Frank, I don't know. You have a defense first coach who's not a fan of playing him.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And I'll say this would be the one thing, if I was a Knick fan, that would worry me, would be they're playing well, they're playing better, they're clearly better coach, and they're getting maximum effort from guys. But is it the young future in the core that's the reason they're winning? Or is it because of the veteran players that Coach Thibodeau's coaching well is why they're winning? And like, if I'm looking for development and looking for a future, I hope it's RJ Barrett, Quickly, Toppin, Mitchell, the guys that I know are going to be there in the future that are playing well, and not big games from Payton. Not, like I said before, you want to see him win. So I understand still being excited, but I would be like, I want to just make sure that it's the young core is the reason I'm getting excited for this team.
That's a really good point. And like, I feel like in the past when they've had like veterans and the veterans help them win, you're like, what's the point of this? I would make the case basically RJ has looked a lot better this season.
Agreed.
Like huge step forward from last season. And obviously he has a ways to go. Mitchell Robinson has been playing. The Knicks are now one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, which is shocking. And a big part of that is Mitchell Robinson's be able to stay on the court, altering shots. He's been looking really good. IQ is not yet starting, but he looks really good. And if you count Randall as part of the core, which I think a lot of us have started doing, Randall's a bit like you see a real core being built here, basically. So I think you can count the core as the guys you want to build with as being a big part of why they're winning. If you don't count Randall, then it looks a little worse.
I'm just being an annoying Nets fan. Devil's
fine.
advocate on questions. Sorry about
I mean, your Nets. I mean, I know they're winning. They're winning games, but like, it's really the veterans, Harden, Irving, and Durant. I mean, like, what about the young guys? You're not developing anyone. This guy Brown should get most of the minutes, right?
He's played well. Bruce
Yes,
Brown.
actually,
He
yeah.
needs to start. We've been begging Coach Nash. He finally did it. They played well.
How do you pronounce Luna Wawa Carrot?
Timothy Luwabu Cabarro.
I don't think that's one of those things that like
Just call him TLC. It's a lot easier.
That sounds a lot better.
Timothy
Jay, you
Luwabu
said we have
Cabarro.
questions?
Yeah, nyknickspodcast@gmail.com. Samuel writes, why can't Iggy take Knox's minutes? Knox had 3 years to prove himself and is still the same player. Give Iggy a chance. Iggy had that one summer league game and outplayed Barrett and was the best player on the court. I think Iggy could have a mini Quickly type impact if he had Knox's minutes.
I don't. From what I've seen of Iggy, I have not been that impressed with him. I think his defense is pretty lackluster. He's in the G League this year, or this season. If he looks really good there again, then wait, is he in the G League? He is in the G League, right? This season?
Yeah, but I don't think he's getting minutes in the G League either.
No, he was. I think he was injured or held out for protocol reasons.
Okay.
He played the first game, and I think he looked good. Did not play the second game. In the first, so the Westchester Knicks, by the way, have played 2 games. Game 1, Jared Harper apparently looked awesome. And for every reason, Jared Harper only played 4 minutes in the second game. May have had to do with COVID protocols. I'm not sure. I just know he was held out after 4 minutes. But Miles Powell looked kind of awesome in game 2. So,
well, that email is from a week ago. Knox is now playing 0 minutes a game, so Iggy is getting Knox's minutes.
That's a good point. Do you have anyone on the Nets that you are frustrated that does not get minutes? We also in the Knicks always have there's always a guy where everyone's like, I can't believe this guy's not playing. If we only played, and Iggy's not as much, but like the Knicks fans always have like, if we play this one guy, the world will be right again.
It was Bruce Brown was the guy because he's the one player on the Nets that plays defense, gives energy, hustles, does that type of stuff. So he's starting a handful of games, then he hasn't started a handful of games, but also this season has been kind of weird with the trade and then Kevin Durant going in and out of quarantine. So when Bruce Brown starts, that's the Nets typically come out with a little more energy, which has been helpful because of how lackluster they've been in games. So I would say Bruce Brown is the guy people are like, why is he not getting minutes? He plays defense and tries.
Okay, makes sense.
Jorge writes, hey guys, Mark made a comment last episode about this team's work ethic. Isn't it crazy that nobody has missed a game due to COVID? These guys must really be committed to choosing the gym over clubs.
Yeah, I would assume that for most players outside of James Harden, they're choosing not to go to clubs this season so they don't get COVID.
Well, Memphis got like shut down, and I think Washington too.
Yeah, to Tibbs. So one thing I do love is that Tibbs is known to be, I think I said last episode, for his work ethic, for like working guys really hard. And it seems like now the Knicks have a bunch of guys who really buy into that. And that's actually a pretty good point about no one in the Knicks really having COVID issues. Maybe because they're buying into they really want to just play hard for Tibbs and not go with Harden at the club.
There's probably some luck to it too. Like there's just some times where if these guys are traveling and they're going places that random crap is going to happen. So I would say a little luck on the side, but then like that's something not to be taken lightly, and as an organization actually be proud of if your franchise has gone the year without that kind of crap, especially how difficult that is. So even though it's nothing that you can tangible wins or losses, it's still something as an organization you should take pride in.
I agree with you, and I agree with the luck part of it also. I think a lot of us, the luck has to do with, like, not that we're all taking these insane chances, but luck has a lot to do with, like, any of us catching it.
David writes, do you think since we're still paying Noah and Tibbs is getting the band back together, we just put Noah back on the roster and play him in spot minutes? Surely that would be a classic Knicks story. Stretch a guy only to play him 2 years later again.
Oh my God!
I mean, if this
was Dang too, maybe
the Knicks' two highest, not two, like I guess where is it? Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose are now like third and fourth for the Knicks in payroll.
Oh my God!
Something like that.
Oh my God, that's tough.
Any more emails? I have a couple of Facebook questions.
Yeah. So James writes, he's actually in the Twitch chat right now. Which players do you see the Knicks trading? I wouldn't trade for Beal now because it'll take too much and they'll be left with nothing.
Do you think, so Mike, do you think the Knicks should try to make a move for a guy like Beal and like quote unquote gut the roster or gut draft picks to get him?
I don't. I think it's taking a shortcut. And you referenced it earlier, like becoming the 8th seed or the 7th seed. It's a fine line between getting better in the moment, but then knowing you have no chance to win titles. Like I would be, as a fan, like I'm always in the market to win championships, not just be the 5th seed and go to the second round and have juice in the garden. Like I want to win a championship. And I know it's been a while for Knicks fans, and I'm not saying that like as a slight, like it's been a while. So I could understand if the excitement of being a 50-32 win team, 48-34, I'm just showing that off that I could actually get math right with the season for a second. But I could understand that excitement and wanting to be good on that level. But if you have a team of Victor Oladipo and then you gutted RJ Barrett, you dealt him. If you're dealing some of that core, what's the point? Like the Nets made it, but they had but it was different with Kyrie and Durant. And then the thing about the Nets was they didn't gut their core to get those guys. They gutted it to get Harden. I admit that, but that was the 3rd star. I'd be scared to gut it for one guy, and that's it, just so you can celebrate 50 wins.
It would be the Melo situation all over.
Do the process right and wait it out.
Yeah.
So I would agree. I think the I think what the Nets did with Harden made sense because you guys were already all in with Kyrie and Durant. Like you have to, once you're all in, you have to really go all in. And it made too much sense not to do that trade, even though like it could screw you guys, but like at some point you got to push your chips to the center and just go for it. The Knicks, they're not that close. I would want to have, instead of the big three model for the Knicks, I'd want to go with the Miami model. Build a team that plays really solid team basketball, that's good on many levels. Maybe at some point you add like a Jimmy Butler type, and that puts you over the top.
Right.
But like, think of this as like a 3 to 5 year plan where we're going to keep getting better and better and develop our young players and add more through the draft or or through trades. And then, but just try to build a solid team that could like through team basketball, like give you an actual chance.
Yeah, we'll learn a lot, I think, about the Knicks and what their plans are from this trade deadline. And if like Tibbs is like, hey, I've come here, I'm playing this team well, I want to win games. I didn't come here for a rebuild. Or they're taking it the right steps, quickly improves. RJ Barrett improves. His jumper gets better, and he becomes a perennial all-star. Like they have the Dallas pick. They have their own pick. And all of a sudden, next year, you're going, we have 4 or 5 young players. Let's see these guys gel and develop as opposed to gutting it out, bringing in the star. I mean, like that Dallas pick dangling there with the young players you have. Like if I'm a Knick fan with that in mind, that's my excitement right there. Not thinking about, Bradley Beal coming in, scoring 42 points, and then the rest of the team doing nothing.
I mean, the Knicks, like, I don't know how they did with Obi. We'll find out. But if they taken like Tyrese Halliburton with IQ, you'd be looking at him like you'd be like, wow, this future is really bright. And forgetting not to relitigate what they should have done. But next year, if you have 2 picks in the first round. If one of those picks ends up just being like even IQ level, there's a guy who looks like he's going to be pretty good.
You're on the trajectory.
Yeah, like I feel like just keep developing. Don't make any stupid moves. My fear is I just don't know Leon Rose. How savvy, how willing he is to go like this is a 3 to 5 year build, not a 1 year make me look good and we'll get to the first round and I'll celebrate our 1 and out basically in the playoffs.
As for players that I think will get traded, I would say Rivers, Knox, and maybe Peyton.
I feel like I don't think the value is going to. Maybe we get a second for Peyton for a team that. I think the Knox and Frank are the most likely candidates to get moved.
You don't think Rivers?
I don't think there's any value. I don't think anyone's going to trade you for him. I think it's You think so?
I think a team that could use an outside shooter could use scoring. I know he hasn't shot particularly well, and he had that one game where he was incredibly hot and inflated his stats a little bit. But I think for a team that's looking for just somebody that stands on the outside that can shoot an open jumper, you have to remember too, if like he went to the Lakers, I'll use them as an example, he would just be standing in the corner waiting for the playmakers to get him the ball. So I could see somebody wanting him. And then as far as Frank and Knox, that's this is like what happened with D'Angelo Russell when he came to the Nets. Like that trade is like a second start because they're young enough where the team thinks that if they get a hold of them, we saw it with Jahlil Okafor, all these guys, like we give them a second chance. Maybe we can turn them into a player. Not saying it'll work or not, but they're still so young and they've only been with the Knicks that maybe a shift and a change of scenery could help those guys.
Yeah, that's where I see the value. The funny thing about Knicks fans, because we're big on, in the last couple of years, we've done a bunch of reclamation projects, guys who just didn't work out on other teams. Knicks fans are so fast to say like this young player just absolutely sucks if he comes from another team, like Dennis Smith. If the Knicks draft him, there's a certain percentage of the fan base will never give up on Knox, will never give up on the guy, no matter how bad he is. They'll be like, if you just give him the right situation, if you surrounded Frank with 4 guys who could shoot 60% from 3, he'd be good. The Knicks just build around him. Come on already.
By the way, Dennis Smith played tonight. Immediately
Really?
shot an air ball.
I thought Jay was like, he's on his way to a triple-double.
No. Immediately shot an air ball and looked like, okay, maybe.
Dennis Smith, I feel bad. He has a lot of talent. There are a lot of players. I mean, you're not drafted in the top 10 or what if you're not really talented. Knox, there are lots of guys in the top 10 who are really talented, just don't end up working out. Smith and Knox, they're going to work out. They're going to be probably on a future team. Basically.
Well, that's why I'm okay. And I know you talked about like the level of picks, but like 2 of the best players in the league with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kawhi Leonard both picked at 15. Like that's a rarity. I know that a little bit, but you can find guys later in the draft. It's not always the first, second, and third pick that turn out to be the stars. So you just never know when you acquire these assets and turn them into picks.
I mean, the last few years, the Knicks have like not been great with their draft picks. But if you look at the guys who were reasonable enough for the Knicks to have taken, like when they drafted Frank, which a lot of people thought they should draft Frank. I mean, the other guys were Malik Monk, who's not been that great either, or Dennis Smith.
Right.
And there was a little bit of talk of Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell's turned out to be goddamn awesome, but I'm not killing them for that trade.
No.
Knox was just a terrible pick. I mean, just in the sense of like, it was the guy, like I remember at the time being like, why did they draft this guy? And they could have shaken. The logical pick was like a guy like Mikal Bridges, who looks goddamn awesome in Phoenix right now. Or you could have taken Michael Porter, but the Knicks couldn't take him because he's injured for some reason. That held them off. And Porter looks pretty good too.
Mm-hmm.
And of course Shea Gildress, who basically the Knicks probably didn't take him because they had drafted Frank the year before. But again, like you drafted Shea, basically your team would be so much better. And then and this year I not think like as good as Obi could be. I just thought you needed a guard or a point guard. Anyway, you could do well with anywhere in the draft, basically.
All right. So for podcast purposes, we are out of time, but we can go and do the rest of the questions in the live room if you want.
Are you okay with that, Mike?
Yeah, sure. It's all good.
So we are NY Knicks Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, nyknickspodcast@gmail.com, and the website is thenewyorknickspodcast.com. Mike, we have 2 minutes for the podcast. Tell us a little bit about your two shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. So Bad Weather Fans is a podcast I do with Alex Benesowitz. He's a diehard New York Knicks fan. I am a diehard Nets fan. And basically him and I just give a Net and Nick perspective and we get into different topics. And it's been good for me. I've learned a lot about the Knicks. He's learned a lot about the Nets. And it's been kind of fun to battle back and forth. And I think we have found a new appreciation for each other's teams. And it's been cool to vent about the Nets, and it's been cool to hear him vent about the Knicks and kind of go back and forth, and then to document as this season has progressed, and we'll see what happens. And then my other podcast, Mike Delivers. I am an Uber Eats driver on the side, so I document all my stories on the road that I see every single day as an Uber Eats driver, delivering people in their underwear, delivering to celebrities, and all the crazy shenanigans that happens on the road in Essex County, New Jersey, delivering for Uber Eats.
That sounds really good. I'm actually going to listen to that. So you have a website on that, or is that just on?
Just Mike Delivers. You can find it where you can find, any podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, the whole deal. It's on there. And it started off as a podcast called Basketball Drive. So those are the early episodes, but then it changed into Mike Delivers because I wanted to deliver all kinds of content on the landscape there. So thank you guys. I appreciate the plugs.
Awesome. So stay tuned for that.
Your delivery podcast sounds a lot better than our current Knicks show.
Yeah, I'm actually going to listen to that.
I'm totally going to check it out.
Yeah,
so
cool. I appreciate that. No, but don't say that about your show, but I appreciate you checking it out.
So if you want to hear the rest of this episode, you could go to twitch.tv/crumpledbacon with a P, or our YouTube channel, which is YouTube TITOWAJ. And we'll be back soon.